Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Another week, another episode. This is Stats Over Politics. As always, I'm your host, Shaun Holko, alongside my guy, Mr. Kevin Dent. Garry Singh is unable to join us tonight as he has to work, but Jaevon Toddy, known as the Podfather, will be joining us very, very soon. Kevin, how are we doing this week?
Man, I'm doing really, really well, man. I'm back on the podcast. We're back to our regular scheduled programming. No more 9:30, 10 o'clock podcasts.
Man.
As you guys know, I'm getting old, man. Like, if I don't get my 7-8 hours, I'm real cranky in the morning, and that's no good for anybody. So I'm doing really well, man. I can't complain. I was talking to Shaun before the pod. I got some big news for the podcast listeners, man. I got a grill now. So now I am Grandmaster Grill. So Alyssa had a going away party for one of her friends. I threw down some jalapeno peppers, some burgers, some hot dogs. Yeah, man. Now I'm getting in my bag a little bit. I'm getting in my bag. I want to start ribs, but I know that's a big shot for me. So, I'm just now getting into it. So it was very, very nerve-wracking to understand that 10 people are going to eat this food. And, if it's not good, they're not going to tell me it's not good. So I was really, really nervous. Had a couple maybe 2 beers, but, it all worked out. They said the food was delicious. So no complaints here. How you doing, Shaun?
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. It sounds like you guys are truly making your house into a home, which is really awesome to hear. And I'm glad to hear that everyone enjoyed the food as well. We're going to have you throw down for us eventually when you come back to Stack. And so I'm definitely looking forward to that. Guys, this is episode number 97. We are 3 away from hitting 100 episodes, which is really exciting. And it's going to be on June 10th at 7 p.m. It's a Monday night. As Kevin mentioned, we are back to our regularly scheduled programming. That may not be the case over the next couple of weeks. I still got to look ahead at the schedule. I know in the conference finals, there will be an NBA playoff game every other day. Like, it's Eastern Conference Finals one day, Western Conference Finals the next, and it'll continue to alternate until we get to the NBA Finals. But I did look ahead at the NBA Finals schedule, and there will be no games on June 10th. So we will be here for episode number 100 on June 10th at 7 p.m., all 4 of us. So make sure that you check us out then. But Kevin, before we get to the conference semifinals, recapping what was, and then getting to our conference finals preview, officially making predictions for how we think those will go, we got to get to some news that we didn't have time to get to last week. And that is a lot of head coaching changes in the NBA. But before we get there, I want to give a shout out to Dad Dent, who says, Grill Master Kevin. Has Dad Dent got a chance to check out the grub yet?
No, he has not, but he was the person I was on FaceTime with. Because I had no idea what to do. I didn't understand the propane versus the rocks. I forget what the rocks are called for this. There's a
charcoal.
There's charcoal grill and the propane grill. And I was like, I told the guy, like, this is my very first grill. Like, what do you recommend? And he's like, propane. I was like, all right, let me call someone who I know isn't going to steer me down the wrong way for a purchase. He's like, yep, propane, 100%. You let it warm up for a little bit and you're good to go. I guess charcoal takes a lot more time. And for a first-time griller, and my dad knows me. He knows I'm not the most patient of people. So having to know what temperature the charcoal's on and all that other good stuff would have just taken a lot more time to learn. So I just kind of jumped into the deep end with the propane. And, it's kind of scary, saying you have propane tank just sitting in your backyard. But, it's once I got over that fear, I have no complaints.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm a very, very, very novice griller. Like, the only grilling that I've done is on an electric grill. And it's been like, I'm cooking some sausages. Like, it ain't that hard. And so I definitely.
That was me until this. I had a George Foreman grill. My mom got me one.
Yes.
I had a George Foreman grill in my dorm.
Yep, that's exactly what I got in my apartment right now. But anyways, as we're going to be getting started here, our guy Jaevon will be joining us real soon. And Kevin, as I mentioned, there was some head coaching changes in the NBA, and specifically in our division, being the Pacific Division, which arguably, in my opinion, is probably the best division in basketball when you look at it from top to bottom. But anyways, let's start things off down south in Los Angeles as the Lakers fired Darvin Ham. After only 2 seasons, he makes it to the Western Conference Finals in his first year with the Lakers, but he's already gone now after 2 years. So, Kevin, as one of 2 LeBronologists on this panel, I was just wondering, how did you feel about this? Because everyone's saying, oh, LeBron had Darvin be the scapegoat. What's your take on it?
So I was having this debate with one of my good friends, Shaun. In the NBA, with certain, I would say the NBA has a lot more job security when it comes to head coaches in the NFL. But there's a lot of places, where that rule doesn't apply. And one of those places are the Los Angeles Lakers. The standard is so high. If you're not winning a championship, you're out of there. And they shipped off their only championship coach since the great Phil Jackson and Frank Vogel. And that was pretty sure the year after they won the playoffs or the championship, I believe. It might have been a year after that, but
very shortly after.
Yeah, very shortly after winning a championship, bringing the Lakers back to dynasty, bringing them back to the top, tying with the Boston Celtics. That coach got shipped off and fired. So it was a surprise. But Darvin Ham, there was a lot of disagreements between the star players, that being Anthony Davis and LeBron James, going to the podium, telling them, I don't think we really knew what we were doing out there. We're kind of just running around. And them kind of coming out saying that publicly says a lot about how they felt about him, and eventually ended up probably being one of the main reasons he got fired.
Definitely. And now joining us from his Boston residence here in Sacramento County is none other than Mr. Jaevon Toddy, the Podfather. Thank you for joining us.
Kev, got the quarter zip turtleneck on. Is it cold? What's going on?
I'm happy you said that. So, as everybody knows, I'm an Eagles fan, and it was a long season for me. Long season. These two never let me hear the end of it, from start to finish. So
good reason for that.
Why is that relevant, Kevin? The clocks hit 0. My phone starts buzzing. Wesley Reynolds. You don't know this. You don't know that. Why do you have a broadcast? I told y'all didn't believe. And rambling. We get off the phone. And I'm like, you know what? That was bad. But it will not be as bad as getting a 40 or a Toddy FaceTime after the Celtics win the championship. All I had to say last year was the Eagles we've seen our team win a championship. That's the only thing I can tell these two guys. Now Toddy's going to be able to throw that back on me? Yeah, no, I can't do that. So I am foregoing, and I am committing to Wolves Back University, baby. I don't give a damn about none of that. Wesley, we here. Wolves Back. We going all the way. I'm here. I'd rather sit there for the rest of my life and hear Wesley than Toddy. So I'm all in, baby. Wolves back.
Wolves back, baby.
I like the reveal. Toddy, that was a classic reveal right
Dude,
there.
I was in here sweating. I was like, bro, Toddy got to be here soon, bro. It's hot as hell in here.
I'm
happy he said something as soon as he got on, bro.
I thought that.
Man, I thought that was just a fashion choice. I don't really know what the weather's like up in Portland or Oregon. But, Toddy, so the Lakers fired Darvin Ham, as we didn't get to that last week. And so do you believe that Darvin was the scapegoat?
Absolutely. I mean, Darvin in his first year goes to the Western Conference Finals. First year ever coaching. Western Conference Finals. Second year, playoffs. Second or first round, so they get through the play-in, blah, blah, Zion goes for 40. To any other coach that's not coaching for the Los Angeles Lakers, that is 2 great back-to-back seasons. The Kings would die for that. The Magic would have died for that. There's just like certain franchises, like you look around the league and how the Lakers are just held to a higher standard than most franchises. Lakers want to compete for championships. I think their front office is a little bit more delusional on how good their team actually is outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And so they kind of just try to we'll run it back with the same exact team that we had last year and just hope for the best. Hey, we played Denver. Like, you got Anthony Davis at media days talking about, oh, yeah, we're going to get our get back. Are you, Anthony? Are you really going to get your get back? Didn't go well for them. They got gentlemen swept, and last year obviously they ended up getting swept. So the Lakers like to rotate out their coaches. I mean, hell, they fired Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel won a championship for them. That kind of tells you no one's safe. So we're looking at it as you're hearing reports about JJ Redick wanting to be the head coach and things of that nature. I don't know if JJ should want to jump into something like the Los Angeles Lakers job. Maybe go somewhere you have a little bit more stability. You have more control in what's kind of going on the day-to-day basis. And and not you kind of looking over your shoulder. I feel like the next coach for the Lakers has to have some type of coaching experience, which JJ has none at all. Have some type of coaching experience, maybe being an assistant. A guy who I like is on our staff. Sam Cassell would be a really seasoned head coach, or not head coach, seasoned assistant coach, kind of been waiting in the weeds for his chance to become a head coach, and play the game at a high level at one point in time, and is a champion. So I wouldn't see why not you hire Sam Cassell. But as far as the Lakers go, the Lakers they need a lot more than just a coach. They need to kind of rebuild around this roster and kind of go from there.
I agree. And Frank Vogel is also who Kevin mentioned. And speaking of Frank Vogel, he is also without a job now after one season with the Phoenix Suns. And this is honestly remarkable to me, because if you look at NBA history and you have the coaches with the most wins in their only season with the team, there's only one coach in NBA history who has had more wins in their only season with the team more than Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel had 49 wins, which tied with Frank McGuire, who was the Warriors coach in 1961-62. And Toddy, any guesses who the coach is that has the most wins in NBA history in their only season? Not Shaun's pop quiz. Gary's not here, but just throwing it out there. There's one guy who has more wins than Frank Vogel in their only season as head coach of an NBA team. Toddy, I'm passing it to you first. Do you have any idea who it could be?
Is there a chance we actually know?
Yes, it is definitely.
I'm about to say, if this is 1922, then yeah.
It's someone you definitely know, and it's someone who was definitely recent.
Steve Kerr?
No, that was been the Warriors coach the entire time. This is someone who was with a team for 1 year.
Oh, for 1 year.
Yes.
Oh, it's
Come on. I threw it to you first for a reason. Come on, Tony.
Brad Stevens.
No, but you're getting hot.
John Phillip. No, he got
Ime Udoka.
There we go. Ime
There
Udoka.
Right
51 wins. Ime Udoka had 51 wins in
I was going to say Dwayne Casey.
22 regular season. Dwayne Casey, that would have been with the Pistons. Yeah. No. Ime Udoka. So the point is that Frank Vogel has the second most wins by a head coach in his only season with the team in NBA history. And we see Ime Udoka has moved on to the Houston Rockets, and we see him building a team there. And so, Kevin, I want to toss this to you first. What did you think about Frank Vogel being fired by the Phoenix Suns after only one season?
I wasn't surprised at all, man. And I was scrolling through Twitter, and I saw a hell of an analogy, and it all kind of made sense. Frank Vogel's known as a defensive coach. That's his pride and joy. That's what got him to a championship. Those really good Roy Hibbert years, those were really behind Frank Vogel and his defensive chemistry and his defensive schemes. This is like giving Bill Belichick the Eagles or the Niners. He don't know what the hell to do with them. He's a defensive coach. You want us to go score 50 points? This ain't Belichick's thing. He want to get nitty and gritty in defense and win 3-0. He don't care if you're throwing for 400 or 500 yards. That's just not his thing. So Frank Vogel had a team that was great on offense, but shit on defense. But it's not really his fault when Bradley Beal, we talked about in the offseason when Toddy was like, would you prefer Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal? And I said, at least Zach plays. Bradley Beal and Toddy's famous thing was, Kevin, he's in Washington. What is he going to play for? Now he was in Phoenix. Now what you not playing for? This
I also
is
said he averaged 26 points a game. And look where that,
Look what that did. Nothing. And now he has a no trade clause. They can't even trade the man, and he's guaranteed $53 million next year. There was a lot of things that circled around this problem against Frank Vogel and this Suns team. They gave away all their pieces. They went all in. They got a new GM or new owner, I believe, and he said, fuck it. We get rid of everybody. We bring in what we can get. And I bet you he's kicking his ass now because Frank Vogel came out and said he wanted to go trade for a point guard. He wanted to trade for a point guard, and they were telling him, dude, you have Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. You need a point guard? We're sitting here talking about point guards? You got the big three. We got you Nurkic. There you go. Let's do that. We got Grayson Allen. We got a lot of good things. We got Bull. We got a lot. And it just goes to show that the owner doubled down, saying there's 28 teams that would take our no draft pick, our team as is right now, and there's not a lot of teams that would do that. So if in the 20 now seeing it 2020 did not work out, yes, but we see Kevin Durant try to go to places and do it all in 1 year, and the chemistry just doesn't work. We've literally seen this 2.5 years ago. So I wasn't a big fan of the Suns jump from Suns move from the jump, but to see it kind of play out like this is unfortunate for Frank Vogel, championship winning coach, and now back to being an assistant coach maybe. So it definitely sucks for Frank Vogel, and there's a lot of slander on his name, but let's not pretend like this team wasn't crippled all season and all the way through the playoffs. So
yeah, well, we were referencing Toddy's old takes about Bradley Beal. I mean, I had the worst take of them all, and I'll just leave it there because
the third option.
those who know, they know. I had the all-time worst take this past summer, but it's just because the whole reason why I even said that is I was like, well, if Kevin Durant is your third option, then the team is probably like elite. But we couldn't even get to that point because Bradley Beal was hurt to start the season with a back injury, and then Devin Booker was hurt, and then KD was hurt, and then Devin Booker was hurt again, and then Bradley Beal was hurt, and it just kept going back and forth to where they hardly had any time on the court by the time that the playoffs came. And we saw that they ultimately got swept by the team that Kevin is wearing right now. And so Frank Vogel out. Now in another recent NBA championship coach, Mike Budenholzer has been hired and was quickly hired by the Phoenix Suns. And so, Toddy, I'm going to toss it back to you with this one. Was this the right move for the Suns to hire Mike Budenholzer?
Bud, Coach Booty. I don't know, man. It's tough because the owner can't fire himself, and
is he really that bad though? He just got there.
The owner was the one that pushed for the Kevin Durant, the Bradley Beal, and kind of just put this team together essentially, and it was never going to mesh. And I don't know if it still meshes. So what happens when Mike Budenholzer and the same team essentially goes to, let's say, the first round and gets bounced? I don't know if they get swept or he wins a game in the first round. Does that? I mean, it's kind of essentially the same thing, right? It's just the team. And you're looking at Bradley Beal's contract, as Kevin already mentioned. He's getting $53 million a year. I believe Devin Booker is going to be up for an extension pretty soon as well. And Kevin Durant's already making what he's making. So just between all of those guys, you're basically giving like 70% of your cap space is going to three guys. And so when that happens, your team around those three guys isn't really going to be as good. And that's kind of what a lot of us were kind of skeptical of going into the year. It was like, yeah, they got three guys who could essentially give you 90 points a game, but everybody else. And are they going to have to outscore everybody? Like, how good is their defense? And I will give credit to Frank Vogel. They were one of the better defensive teams towards the end of the year. But at the same time, when you run into a solid team that has, pieces everywhere, guys that are able to defend the wing, like we'll just go to their past playoff series. You had guys like Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and Keel Alexander Walker, guys that could defend Rudy Gobert. Those guys were able to essentially neutralize Devin Booker and Kevin Durant at some point in time because Devin Booker didn't have a great series. He had a great game. He had a 50-point game, I believe it was in game 4 that was, but didn't really essentially have a great series. You had Bradley Beal scored 9 points in the last game. You had Kevin Durant. He was kind of off and on, but he was, I'd say, the more consistent of the three guys. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you need rim protection. You need a guy that can defend on the wing. You need a point guard. We thought Bradley Beal would come in and be that guy who would be able to distribute. But that's not really his game. His game is, more of a slasher, getting to the basket and be able to knock down mid-range shots. And, when you have Kevin Durant, or when you can't have just one of those three guys playing phenomenal on a night-to-night basis if they want to play winning basketball. They all have to be clicking on all cylinders. I think that it's very imperative for them to try to restructure this roster. I know you want to – that would kind of entail getting rid of Bradley Beal, and no one's wanting to trade for that contract after what they saw last year or a couple months ago. So does Bradley Beal have the worst contract in basketball right now?
Only because Ben Simmons has one more year left on his deal.
So, yeah, it's not looking great right now.
No, it's definitely not looking great right now, and I wonder if this could actually end up working out, because forgive me for using this as an example first and foremost, but it's just off the top of my head. Like the Heatles, they obviously didn't work in year one. They did make it to the NBA Finals, but they didn't win it all as they were expected to. The Suns didn't even win a playoff game. So that's a huge difference. Absolutely huge difference. However, I will say, you look at 3 All-Stars all coming together and it not really work in the first year. I'm wearing my WNBA Cares shirt. Even look at my squad, the New York Liberty. Last year, the first half of the season, they looked rough. The chemistry just wasn't there. But now they're 4-0. They just started the season looking dominant, and it's because the chemistry is there and because they know how each other plays better together now, and they have a system. Will Mike Budenholzer put in a system to actually make this work? I'm interested to see that. But, Kevin, what were your thoughts on, as Toddy said, the Suns hiring Coach Booty?
He's a champion. Remember that.
Yeah, so was Frank. And he's in the unemployment line. So
yeah.
What do I see from Mike Budenholzer, excuse me. I think it's a great hire, but like Toddy said, there are so many other things going wrong. You know, if we're in the same predicament next year and they win a game, they had a better season, quote unquote, but they didn't get swept, but they got a gentleman's swept. No one feels that way with the Lakers. You know, there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. But he's, like I mentioned, it's a shitty situation. You have a general manager or owner, who believes that everyone else in the world wants his position. You know, everyone else wants his team. There's no draft picks. There's no trade assets. And that's not how this works. And I know Shaun mentioned with the big 3, but they had guys on that team like Mario Chalmers. You know, they had Mike Miller.
Shane
Battier. You know, Chris Anderson, Birdman. Udonis Haslam. So they had a lot of guys to do it. And we're seeing, especially with the Denver Nuggets, we'll get into that more later on, but you got to have a depth. If you don't have any depth, it's going to get you through the regular season, but when it's crunch time and you can't throw in your 7th to 8th guy for 10, 15 minutes a night because every point or every minute matters. And we saw that with the Suns. They had nothing to do. You know, when Bradley Beal wasn't going, Grayson Allen got hurt, a thin bench got thinner. And they had nothing to do. They had nowhere to go. So Mike Budenholzer is coming in to a job that is fucked in all assets. What do? If they're being bad, you know, halfway through the season before the trade deadline, do they just trade everybody and try to rekindle all those draft assets and, you know, just rebuild? But then again, is Devin Booker going to want to sit around for a second rebuild? No. Is Kevin Durant going to want to do that? Hell no. And like Toddy mentioned, who's going to want to trade for Bradley Beal? He has a no trade clause. So if he doesn't agree to them, it doesn't care what they think about him. He can say, I'm staying. I've been on Washington for my whole career. You think I care about winning? I'll sit here and collect my money on the 3rd of the month. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. But I really hope this coach doesn't get fired, because if the coach gets fired, then I feel like the whole front office got to go, because now this is 2 years in a row, 2 years that we have wasted, and we're 3 years removed from this team playing in the NBA Finals, being up 2-0 against Mike Budenholzer and the Milwaukee Bucks. So Toddy said it. We're bringing in a champion. It's going to be weird in the locker room. I know Devin Booker's the only player on that team from that championship run. But he's going to be like, man, I own you. Y'all was up 2-0. Thought Giannis was hurt, and we came back, and he went to Chick-fil-A and got 55 nuggets on the crib. So I'm excited to see what they do. Kevin Durant came out and said he really wasn't comfortable in the offense throughout the whole year. So, of course, 2020 vision, you can say that now, but I don't believe 4 or 5 months ago we thought that. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this all plays out, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're back here talking a year from today saying Suns hire, fill in the blank.
Yeah, I agree. And so now, guys, as we move on, before we get to recapping the conference semifinals and previewing the conference finals, there's one other NBA topic that we need to get to, and that is the Hawks won the NBA draft lottery for the first time on Mother's Day. You might have missed it because it was on Mother's Day in the middle of the day. Anyways, the Hawks won the NBA draft lottery for the first time ever. And I saw some pessimistic Hawks fans on X. They are the Shaun Holkos of Hawks fans. And they were saying, of course, the first time we win the first pick, it's in this draft with this class, where the 2024 class is being compared to 2013 when Anthony Bennett first overall. So I'm admittedly a big-time casual when it comes to men's college basketball from this past NBA season. I look at some of the names in the lottery for these mock drafts, and I'm like, all right, I've heard of some of these names, but I can't really tell you much about a lot of them. But anyways, Kevin, I'm going to toss this to you first. What was your reaction when you saw that the Hawks won the draft lottery and moved all the way up, while the Pistons, who had the worst record in the NBA for the second year in a row, ended up with the fourth pick? And then now the Hawks have the number 1 overall pick in a draft where it's a bunch of, no offense, nobodies. Even Blue agrees.
It's really interesting to see that they won it. There's been so much turmoil this past year and a half. They got rid of their other coach. They brought in Quinn Snyder mid-year. To be an NBA coach and get brought on mid-year says a lot of what they thought the current situation was. So to see them win the number 1 pick, now you're seeing questions. Are they going to trade Trae Young? Are they going to trade DeJounte Murray? What are they going to do? This number 1 pick, Toddy and I have been going back and forth for probably about 2 months, and we can't come up with there's not a solid number 1 pick in this draft, in any mock draft. You can show me 100 mock drafts, and they're all going to have a different 14, different 32. Because like Shaun said, this draft is, unfortunately, Anthony Bennett 2.0. I don't think it's that bad, but it definitely has the potential to be bad. So I think there's a lot of potential in this, but, the Hawks are going to have to do what they do, and I really hope they don't move Trae Young, because that will just set them back even further and make them regret trading him for Luka.
Toddy, you may not be balking like Shaq when it comes to the Atlanta Hawks going, come on. However, you have been pretty chilly for quite some time, dating back to the Shaun and Vaughn days. And so how do you see this shaking out for the Atlanta Hawks, Jaevon? Does this signify the end of the Trae Young era and or DeJounte Murray? Or do the Hawks draft best player available and run it back with those 2 guys and have Trae be your franchise player for the next decade?
It's kind of odd because, like you guys already mentioned, this draft isn't, just an embarrassment of riches in the top 3. A lot of people like to cut it off, say it's a 3-player draft, it's a 2-player draft. There's not that many guys. I even once saw a scout report. I forget where the report actually was. They're comparing the number. If you were to draft somebody with the number 1 overall pick, it would be like drafting Tobias Harris number 1 overall. And that is insane on how crazy that would look. I think this draft, I've been looking at a couple of guys, here and there. Kevin showed me Rasher, Zachariah Rasher. I like him. I think he's a 6'10". I think he's 6'10". He's 19. I think he's another French guy.
He is.
And a lot of people have had him use. I've consistently seen him in the top 3, but he's a guy that can go number 1. Alex Sarr is a guy I've consistently seen at number 1. After the NCAA tournament, people had Donovan Clinging as number 1. There's just a bunch of guys. Like, I've seen Cody Williams be a guy that's projected to go number 1. Now, that may have been before the season, but he's more of a guy that's probably going to be later in the lottery. So there's just a bunch of guys that could go number 1 overall. I've seen at least 6 or 7 different guys that have been projected to go number 1 overall. So that's how, wishy-washy I'd say the draft is. As far as the Hawks go, I think they blow it up. I think it's just time for a fresh start for Trae to kind of go. He's done pretty much all he could. I mean, he's multiple-time All-Star, All-NBA, been to the conference finals, literally a couple of games away from the finals if he probably doesn't get hurt. Hawks probably end up beating the Bucks. I think that was 2021, I want to say that was. So, and then they try to, pair him with DeJounte Murray, and that really doesn't work out. It's pretty redundant on those guys playing with the ball in their hands. So you're kind of looking at it from try to get a shit ton of draft picks for next year, because I believe next year's draft is going to be one of the better drafts we've seen in quite some time. And try to you could trade Trae Young perhaps to the Spurs and get the picks back that you traded the Spurs. I think it was a few years ago when they got DeJounte Murray. And so you recuperate those picks back, and you could trade DeJounte Murray and try to get some picks. I would wonder how much you would get for DeJounte Murray. You trade those guys away, maybe draft. You're drafting number 1 overall. Do you trade the number 1 overall pick this year to a shit team like, I don't know, DC for next year's pick, and you hope that DC is terrible, kind of like what the Bears did when they traded with the Panthers. They gave them DJ Moore, and they traded for their next year's pick. And a bunch, I think it was a couple of second rounders, third rounders, whatever the rest of that trade was. But and then they kind of foreshadowed saying that, hey, you guys probably aren't going to be that good next year. They fleeced them and, kind of hold it out for a year because they won 7 games last year, the Bears. And, Bryce Young, was what he was last year, and they ended up getting the number 1 overall pick. So does DC say yes to a trade like that? Maybe they'll be like, not so fast. And they'll be like, I know what you're trying to pull a fast one on me. But I think Atlanta ends up blowing it up because I don't know how good they thought they would have been if both guys were healthy, because Trae Young was obviously hurt towards the end of the year. Last year they got bounced from the playoffs. I believe in six games in the first round. I think the year before that they made like the play-in and lost. And the year before that they made the Eastern Conference Finals. So their window is closed, I think. And they're trying to chase what it once was. And I think it's just time for them to blow it up and kind of just build around Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson has a lot of promise. Kev's guy, Duke boy. But he's shown a lot of promise. He's young. Been in and out of the lineup due to injury, but I think you kind of just got to load up on picks and try to load up for next year's draft. Get as much picks as you can so they can have an army of picks and maybe try to move up into next year's draft, maybe into the top 5. I feel like there's a guy that could be a cornerstone for piece for them in next year's draft. This year's draft, I'm not sure, but perhaps it could be a stepping stone for them with this number 1 overall pick.
Kevin, the Sacramento Kings have pick number 13, given the fact that they were in the lottery this year after getting eliminated in the play-in. Are there any guys that you're eyeing potentially for the Kings at 13, Kevin? Because obviously the names like Alex Sarr, Donovan Clingan, Rob Dillingham, the Kentucky guys, as Toddy mentioned, Zachariah Rasher. I'm sorry, I butchered his name. Ron Holland, all of those guys, they're going to be likely gone by 13. But Kevin, is there someone that you're targeting for the Sacramento Kings at 13?
Cody.
If Cody Williams drops to 13, we got to go get Cody Williams. I'm a huge Cody Williams fan. I am a huge Jacoby Walker fan. I think we just really need to bring in more length.
Jacoby Walters,
excuse me. You hear Coach Mike coming in after the podium saying, I wish you always talking about how much of the depth and length the other team had on the opposing side. So for us to bring in a talent like that, 6'5", 6'6", you can shoot the 3 ball, put the ball on the ground. Those two kind of players light up when I see it. I wouldn't be mad if Mr. Ron Holland found down. If Ron Holland felt it was, I think we go get him as well. I'm definitely not in the camp of us drafting a big man. No
Filipowski.
No, Filipowski. We've seen.
Have some faith in your boy.
Shaun tells me all the time. Every time I bring up another big man, he says, "Kevin, what happened to Indiana?" You know, we saw Sabonis and Miles Turner butt heads every game. They both really couldn't elevate, and then once they both separate, they both elevate. Sabonis elevates the All-NBA All-Star. Miles Turner ups his averages and his blocks, his rebounds. So they just goes to show that they couldn't play together. So are we really gonna try that 2.0? Are we going to bring another non-shooter on the court when we already have Sabonis? So I would really love for us to go get a guard here, but if we're grabbing a guard, that most likely means Malik Monk is leaving. So if we can keep both, if we can keep Malik Monk and bring another guard in, I'm all in for trading Kevin Huerter.
Why not a Dalton Connect? I like him. He could be good for you guys. I mean, go ahead, Shaun. Oh, I was going to say Dalton Connect out of Tennessee. I think he's like 6'8", 6'9", scorer, lefty. 6'6", my bad. He's 22, so that might. A lot of people are like, "Hey, he's a little older." But what's wrong with older? We've seen older guys kind of come into the league and just be more polished, more established, not as raw. Can shoot the ball fairly well. He'd be a guy for you, essentially like a Kevin Huerter, but just younger. A little. I mean, Kevin Huerter's 6'6", right? Yeah, he's like around the same 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah.
So, I think Dalton Connect would be solid for you guys, but I kind of agree with Kevin. Cody Williams would be pretty solid for you. At one point in time, he was mocked at number 1 to go in this draft. So, if he's able,
he still could. He still could. He very well could.
If he slips to 13, that'd be really solid for you guys. 6'10", can score, put the ball on the floor. I kind of go back and forth with Kevin. If you guys were to draft Cody Williams, would he be a guy that would start for you guys? And he's like, I don't know if he starts. Maybe he comes off the bench. And I was like, why not? Why wouldn't you start? You could start him. Will you be what? It'd be Fox. Give me your 5, Shaun. You gotta give me your 5 with a Cody Williams on your team.
You probably just have him replace Harrison Barnes, like you were saying, and so
put him at the 3.
You put him at the 3. Keegan's already been playing the 4 for a while because of Barnes. I mean, the 2 spot is the biggest question mark at this point because Fox is going to be there at the 1. Sabonis is there at the 5. Keegan can go back and forth between the 3 and the 4. And like I said, the 2 is the biggest question mark because Kevin Huerter still around, probably won't be back. Malik Monk, he's going to get paid. And as much as I want to see Malik Monk come back, he probably will be gone because he deserves to go get that bag. I mean, Jaevon, you and I were talking years ago when you were telling me Malik Monk is a monster. And I'm like, the guy can barely even make the Hornets roster, but it's because they weren't using him right. And then he goes to L.A., he does better. And then he goes to Sacramento and he absolutely takes off.
Oops.
And so, as much as it would pain me to lose Malik Monk, I think that he ultimately goes and he leaves, and I wouldn't be upset about it because he deserves every single penny that he can get. So that really leads to the question mark at the 2. But to answer your question, if Huerter or Monk are back, then you could have Williams go in there at the 3. And for those who don't know, Cody Williams is the younger brother of Jalen Williams.
J-Dub.
J-Dub. Not J-Will, but J-Dub. And so that is important to note. And, the names that I heard you and Kevin mainly talk about, Toddy, were Cody Williams and also you got Jacoby Walter, who is from Baylor.
He's a hooper, and he's a freshman too.
The thing that I like about hearing both of those names is that right now I'm looking at a mock draft from USA Today Sports, and they have Jacoby Walter going 20, and they have Cody Williams going 14. So both guys would be available for the Kings to pick at 13. So I like that. I'll throw one more name out there. Probably not the best fit, but, hometown love. Jared McCain, man. Jared McCain. Kevin, you're shaking your head. Why are you shaking your head?
There's a mock of him going to the Kings too. I saw that earlier.
Yeah, nah, man. We're good, man. I mean, I'm the first dude to pump up the 916er, but We just don't need another small guard. We tried that with Davion. We've seen his struggles. I just feel like it would be a wrong decision.
Cam don't want to draft nobody from Duke.
That's not true. I mean, it's just not a good situation for them. Do I want them to get drafted? Of course, but it's just not a good situation for them or the team. We bring in Jared McCain. We have another small guard, and he's going to struggle on guarding NBA bigs or NBA big guards, NBA twos. He's a tweener, so that's really not going to help. But I'm all in for a Sacramento guy getting drafted. I just believe bringing him to Sacramento wouldn't be the right place for him in his career. I really want him to go to OKC because that's what they need is just another spot-up shooter.
I can't wait.
I mean, Josh Giddey is on the trade block. He is on his way out of Oklahoma City. And so maybe, Sam Presti, he's got all those assets. Maybe he finds a way to – I mean, for a Jared McCain, you probably just need a top 20 pick. And so Sam Presti, he could get himself in there if he really wanted to. But we got plenty of time to talk about the upcoming NBA draft. But before we get there, we got to finish some playoff basketball, gentlemen, as the Western Conference Finals are set. The semifinals in both conferences have wrapped up. And we're going to start with the most recent game as Toddy slowly creeps in for his Shrek meme. But we'll start with the most recent game that happened last night, and it happened last night in Denver. As Kevin, let's see the jersey one more time. I know it's a D-Lo jersey, and he's out in LA, but
Wolves back, baby.
Wolves back, and I will take the L here because when we had the podcast last week, Garry, Toddy, and myself, we made predictions for the remainder of all the semifinal series. I literally hit on every single one. And yeah, it was halfway done. So is it really that impressive? Not really. But I hit on every single one, except I said Nuggets in 7, Wolves in 7. Shout out to Wes. His team is moving on as the Timberwolves. They come back after winning the first 2 games in Denver, losing the next 3. They win the final 2 games of the series for the Timberwolves to move on 4-3 over the reigning, no longer defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. So Kevin, they lost the defense, so it's over. But Kevin, given your attire, I'm going to throw it to you first, since Toddy's been repping Wolves back for a while now, but because of the jersey, Kevin, I'm going to toss it to you first. What did you think of this series overall?
So there's been a term Toddy and I have been going the past couple of weeks. You got to pay to play. And I think the Denver Nuggets have realized you have to pay to play. I know you hit on the Joker, second round during a Taco Bell commercial. You made the pick. You drafted the Joker Nurkic in the first round. You weren't expecting this dude to be anything. And now you're sitting on a 3-time MVP. We saw Peyton Watson come into his own in this playoff run last year. Christian Brown, however you say it, doing his thing.
They wheeling and dealing, Kev.
Wheeling and dealing, and you can see the depth. It runs out. We were talking about it earlier on the podcast. If they don't have those
the 99-cent store,
they're going to have to figure it out because you can't have your 2 guys do it all. They combined it for, let me see. I have it points right here. They combined it for 69 points. They shot 29 of 55, and the whole team made 8 shots and scored 21 points. You need help. And the main guy that I believe deserves a lot of the blame is Michael Porter Jr. You see him versus the Lakers, you're like, okay, we see the college, we see the Missouri, we see the AAU circuit, Michael Porter. This is the dude we came to see. Against the Lakers, he averaged 23 points, 8 rebounds, shot 55% from the field, 49% from 3, and during that series shot 20 of 41. Versus the Timberwolves, 11 points per game, 6 rebounds, 37% from the field, and 30% from 3, shooting 13 of 40. That fall off is horrible. In the second half alone, he went 1 of 5. Aaron Gordon went 0 of 1. The Joker goes 7 of 16. KCP 0 of 4. Jamal Murray 5 of 12. This team has no depth. After those 6 guys come out, it's like, man, are we going to see a DeAndre Jordan signing? Are we going to see this? Are we going to see that? So it was a lot of things to see, but the Nuggets have to figure it out. And keeping this roster and running it back is not going to work.
No, it certainly will not work. And so, Jaevon, I can't tell if you were on Wolves Island the entire time, but you certainly have been recently. And so, what did you think of how this series ultimately concluded? Because, I mean, Anthony Edwards went 6 of 24 in Game 7, but he found a way. And as he said himself, put Jamal Murray in handcuffs. So, what did you think?
I thought, Anthony Edwards is a superstar, top 5 player. You could argue, is he the best player in the world? They just took out. I don't know why you're giving me that.
You cannot argue that.
Argue what?
That he's the best player in the world? What world do you live in?
The world where he just knocked out the 3 times.
So that makes him the best player in the world?
I mean, to be the best, you have to beat the best, Kevin. Isn't that what everybody says? It's not insane.
So whose spot is he taking? Please tell me, because I don't think it's an argument.
I didn't say he's. I didn't say
he said it's an argument though. Is it?
It's definitely arguable that he's
3 to 5. We can talk
in the top 5, the best.
Okay, that's better. That's better. In top 5, you said the best player. That's not an argument.
I said he's a top 5, arguably the best player in the world.
See, arguably, but that's not the right word you should have used.
Okay.
Who is the best player in the world, Kevin?
I mean, we can say Luka, you can say Giannis, you can say Joel Embiid, you can say Shea. There's a lot of names you spit out before you say Anthony Edwards.
Okay,
I know it's recency bias. I understand. Let's just keep it real. It's stats over politics, Toddy. You know there's better guys.
He's putting up insane numbers at the age of 22. The numbers that he's putting up right now in the playoffs has like never been heard of. It's Michael Jordan-esque. It's no one has ever won. I don't know if anyone's ever won a finals at the age of 22. Like he's creeping into that territory. So
I'm just glad that Kevin didn't say LeBron. I thought he was going to say LeBron.
No.
Go ahead.
It's called stats over politics. They come for me if I said that.
So Anthony Edwards is for sure, I believe, in the top 5. A lot of people could argue that he is one of, if not the best player in the world. I don't think that that's insane to say.
I need to talk to those people.
But you do have a
those people are Wes. Sorry, Tony.
You do have a Luka Doncic on the other side there that we'll get into a little bit later. But as far as the series goes, I think this is just the story of Anthony Edwards taking that huge leap from, he's the star. They just knocked out, Kevin Durant and that fake super team that a lot of people were talking about, including me, during the beginning of the year. And then it's like, all right, now you're playing the big boys. And they beat them 3 times in their own gym. Like, that's crazy. For them to not win, what is it? They won 3 games on Denver's court, and not to win that many games at home and giving up home court to Denver several times in the series is telling you something. Like, it doesn't matter where we play. We can play anywhere and we can win. So you're looking at, Rudy Gobert not really having to play a dominant big this next series, and he'll kind of be able to anchor and be that help defender, and not really that on-ball defender that I don't think that he's really as strong at as being that anchor backside defender that's able to clean up the glass and being able to, alter shots coming into the paint rather than having to guard Jokic the majority of the series and get cooked like he was for the majority of the series. He's going to be a guy that's going to be the help defender. Guys are going to drive, and he's going to be able to alter a bunch of shots, stuff that doesn't pop up into the stat sheet. But he's going to be able to defend the paint at a high level. And, Karl Anthony Towns deserves a lot of credit. I know he gets a lot of shit from a bunch of people on Twitter, on Instagram, just social media in general. But Karl Anthony Towns balled, I'd say, for the majority of this series. He played really well. I think he's slowly starting to realize that this is Anthony Edwards' team and not his team. But this team as a whole played really well. I mean, Mike Conley, you saw his absence being missed. I believe it was in, Game 5, the game that they kind of got blown out in. And, their backs were against the wall. And in Games 6 and 7, they were able to pull it out and ultimately beat the defending champions in the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, I'm honestly really happy to see the Wolves move on, even though I did pick the Nuggets to win this series at the beginning and in the middle. However, I'm happy to see the Wolves move on. And one of the latest reasons why, as Toddy was alluding to, what Karl Anthony Towns has dealt with for years, just given his personality and all those things. but I saw a tweet last night, and you guys might have seen it as well. But Vinny Goodwill of Yahoo Sports, he was asking a question while Towns and Edwards were at the post-game podium, and Vinny basically framed it like, you typically in the NBA, you need to lose a lot before you can ultimately win the big one. And then Carl was like, but we lost last year. And Ant was like, yeah, we lost in the playoffs. And Vinny was like, yeah, but usually you do it like at a higher level, like maybe the conference finals. And that's when Carl was like, we ain't losing enough for you. Like, we've been losing for 20 years being the Minnesota Timberwolves. And like, I felt that in my soul as a Sacramento Kings fan. And up until a couple years ago, when this Anthony Edwards led Wolves team started making the playoffs in back-to-back years, Jimmy Butler getting the Wolves to the playoffs was their first playoff appearance in like 15 years. And they had the one playoff appearance in like 18 years until Ant has now led them to what? It's back-to-back playoff appearances or 3 in a row? I think it's back-to-back.
Back-to-back first round playing. First one was playing.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Kevin. And so I'm happy for the Wolves, man. Happy for all the fans out there, and we'll see how this Western Conference Finals goes. But we got to find out who they are playing, and that team is the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks, who the Mavericks took out the top seed in the West, the young OKC Thunder, 4-2 in 6 games. And so, Kevin, I'm tossing it back to you on this one. What did you think about the Mavericks' ability to close this out? Because I know that you said OKC in 6, but it ultimately was flipped.
Gotta show love to the Dukies. We were talking about them, so let's go ahead and talk about them. Derek Lively, 10 points and 15 rebounds. Since 1980s in a series clinching game, there have only been 3 rookies to do it, and by the smack of your lips, Toddy, I know you know the list, so go ahead and tell the listeners who also joined Derek Lively on that list.
Oh, I don't know the list.
You don't know the list. You want to take any guesses?
The list of guys that
in a series clinching game put up 10 points and 15 rebounds.
Who's the other guy?
Shaun, any guesses?
Tyler Hands? No, not Tyler Hansborough. That's a terrible guess. I feel like it has to be another Dookie.
Nope.
No? Okay, no, I give up.
Magic Johnson and David Robinson. So that is hell of company to be in, and that is the game that Magic Johnson did play the center role. So I guess they were all 3 centers. But what really made this difference in the series was PJ Washington. The both teams called up Charlotte and said, we need some pieces. They said, you want Gordon Hayward? The Thunder said, hell yeah. The Mavericks said, you want Gordon Hayward? I said, hell no. They said, well, we got PJ Washington. Said, yeah, we'll take PJ instead. So they both went off their separate ways, and PJ Washington really came to bloom. Since the trade deadline, this team has been the number 1 team defensively the last 6 weeks going into the postseason, and it's starting to show. His tremendous growth. Shaun mentioned a stat last year. Him and Luka were the first duo to put up 25 and 10 since somebody, I'm not too sure of the stat off the top of my head, but his playoff.
No. First ever duo. First ever duo. I think the stat was 25 points, 10 rebounds, and at least 5 3-pointers. First duo to do that in NBA history.
Yeah, man. So PJ Washington blew up. Going into the playoffs, he only averages 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. But in games 2 through 4, 29, 27, 21. And we're talking about the pieces that they brought in. We also have to talk about Daniel Gafford. I know a lot of the hype's around Derek Lively, but he doesn't start. Daniel Gafford goes up there. He had a double-double in the series, and he averaged 8 points and 9 rebounds. So that tandem is doing a lot of work for them, and it's going to show. We saw Kyrie not have a great series, and we saw PJ Washington step up. I don't think Kyrie's going to be able to play that kind of a series and then go to the finals. But the Mavericks got a lot of good things cooking, and as far as the Thunder, you got to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander some help. You have to. He averaged 33 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. We all talked about how Sam Presti has hit draft pick after draft pick after draft pick. Now it's time for these draft picks to show why they were drafted so high. We saw Chet and J-Dub's numbers both decrease, both of their shooting splits decrease in the playoffs when the lights get the brightest. And it comes down to your guys showing up, and the Mavericks guys did. And the Thunder's guys did. And the Thunder said, Shai, take us to the finish line, and we'll do whatever we can to skate by. They just didn't have enough. And I know a lot of Thunder fans are going to say, well, Kevin, it wasn't a foul at the end of the game. No. we can only talk about what it is. What have you done for me lately? He fouled him. He came out there and said he fouled him. So the Thunder have a lot of things to do. A lot of teams don't lose in the second round and say, at least we got the 12th pick in the draft. So they're in a really good situation. We were talking about it, I think probably really early in the season. Should they make a big time trade? Should they go all in? They really need another big man. Chet is really, really good, but after Chet, it's just a bunch of wing players. So they're going to have to get some size in, and either Jalen Williams is going to have to take another step, or they're going to have to find a guy to come in and do that, Kevin Durant. But, I'm all here for a redemption story.
And speaking of Kevin Durant, I did just want to mention an Instagram comment from earlier. You can follow us on Instagram at StatsOverPolitics and see all the great content Kevin's putting out there, our daily picks for the NBA playoffs. But also, moments like today, you could be watching us live on Instagram right now. And at Terrence G _ said earlier when we were talking about Frank Vogel being fired, he said, get rid of KD. So KD could potentially be on the move and a potential reunion back to Oklahoma City. But Toddy, now focusing on this series, as it's well noted, Kyrie is ya boy. And so what did you think of him returning to the conference finals just this time for the first time in the Western Conference?
Kyrie didn't particularly play well the majority of the series. I thought he had really good spurts, particularly in the fourth quarter in most of these games. In Game 6, I thought he played fairly well. To going back to Kevin's point about, Chet Holmgren didn't show up. Chet Holmgren's a rookie. Let's pump through brakes a little bit. I thought he did well defending the rim in this series on Derek Lively, on Gafford, and just as a whole. I believe what OKC will do is say, hey, we like our young core and J-Dub, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Chet Holmgren going forward. They got some playoff experience now. I think a lot of people going into the series were like, OKC's a little bit too young. They're probably going to have a rude awakening going against the Mavs. But there are also those other people saying, well, the Thunder are the number one team in the Western Conference for a reason. And they'll show everybody what a great offensive team that they are. And, you saw Dagnall try to make some adjustments with having Josh Giddey in the game, being in the starting lineup, to him kind of fizzling out like, Giddey's more of a reliable, what's the word? He's a
consistent.
No, he's a liability.
Liability. Okay.
He's a liability more on the court because teams are kind of daring him to shoot more than just being a slasher and kind of what he's good at. And they're inserting guys like Isaiah Joe and Casey Wallace. So, like Kevin said, you got a bunch of picks, Sam Presti. You got like how many? 16 picks, like in the next however many drafts. Let's start to use them a little bit and kind of figure out what you can do. Can you get a star back for all of those picks and see where this team can go? And you get a big guy in the draft, just another rim protector, because we know that this draft is kind of meant for more role players than, starters in this draft. So do you kind of go out and get a guy who can more defend the rim and block shots for you going down the road and kind of not leaving Chet high and dry? Or do you kind of use picks and try to get a star in the summer? So I don't know. There's a lot to kind of, look forward to for the Thunder. I thought that they had a tremendous season, but the Mavs moving on. I think I had the Thunder winning the series, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong, but this is a hell of a series we got coming up in the Western Conference Finals. So hats off to the Mavs for getting it done. I think where the Thunder really lost this series was that game 5 going back home, because they were down 2-1, tied it up. Literally that whole last 9 minutes of that fourth quarter was really wonky, and they had all the momentum going back home. And then they kind of just laid an egg at home, and they lost. I think it was by double digits for sure it was, but that was their chance to kind of really take the series by storm.
Before we move on, Shaun, I had a question for you, Toddy. I know you said Chet Holmgren's a rookie. Take it easy on him, Kev.
You had him winning Rookie of the Year before the year started.
Name me another rookie, the third best player on their team for the number 1 seed.
Third
Oh, I feel like
Oh my God.
You can't. He's in a box of his own. I know it's early, but you got to play. You know, so I mean, Toddy, let's call it what it is. He's essentially a sophomore. He ain't bushy-eyed tail no more. He's supposed to come in here.
He didn't play last year.
And we need you to play. Like, I understand you being young. There wasn't an excuse of youth in the first round of series. No one said it. He has to play better. Like, I understand they're young and they still have a lot of places to go, but they're on two timelines here. You know, Shai is 24, 25. Is he going to want to keep doing this? You know, now that they've gotten over that jump, is he going to be okay with just going to the playoffs and saying, you know, we're the Thunder, you know, we're supposed to just make it to the playoffs. But he has been playing a dominant role for this team. And when the lights get the brightest against competition that really wasn't the greatest, you know, he went above Derek Lively. And, you know, Derek Lively, I know he doesn't score as many points, but defensively was way better than Chad. So you got to take it with what it comes. And I know they're young, but he had to play better. Him and J-Dub, you know, their shooting splits to go down the way they did, they have to play better. You can't put it all on Shai's back.
I thought that I had one for you, Kevin. I really did. I thought Jason Tatum was one, but his rookie year, the Celtics were the 2 seeds. So very, very close. Thought I had one. But guys, now moving on to the Eastern Conference, we'll get back to the Western Conference finals to make a prediction for each one. But now, Toddy, it's your time to get to the Eastern Conference semifinals as the 1 seed Celtics beat the 4 seed Cavaliers 4-1, just as they did in the first round, beating the 8 seed Miami Heat 4-1. Toddy, I see that big old smirk, but yet it should have been 4-0. It should have been 4-0. Didn't have to be by 20 points each game. But in my opinion, the Celtics should have swept these Cavaliers, especially without Donovan Mitchell for the last 3 games or the last 2 games, at least the last 2 games. Thank you, Kevin. So the last 2 games, they still should have swept them. And so go ahead, Toddy, take your victory lap. But, you know, I'm going to find a way to rain on your parade as always.
What does Doug Christie always say, guys? Pack them up and send them home. No, the Celtics are just, you know, man, I know it wasn't pretty, but we got them out of here in 5 games. We've been waiting. We've been waiting to see what we're going to play. You know, we've been chillaxing, you know, getting healthy. You know, Porzingis, a report came out. Porzingis should be back probably by the 2nd or 3rd game. So we're slowly but surely getting healthy. I think just what a lot of people are just not trying to give us credit. Well, they didn't sweep the Cavs, and they didn't sweep they didn't get them out of here in 4 games. Like, okay, let's relax here, guys. Like, we win a lot of playoff games. You know, like, we do what we're supposed to do. Like, we didn't beat the Miami Heat in what was it? We beat them in 5. If we would have beat Miami in 4 games, they wouldn't have said anything. If we would have beat the Cavs in 4, you're supposed to beat those guys. Like, okay. And so I feel like it's only going to stay. Like, we've proven that we can win playoff games. Like, this is Jason Tatum's 6th time to the Eastern Conference. Like, he's been to the conference finals pretty much every year. Essentially almost every year that he's been playing. I think what a lot of people are just waiting to see is the Celtics win the finals. And they've been to the finals before, but just they came up short. And I feel like that's what everybody's going to just allude to. Like, they can't ever win the big game. They can never get to the big dance. But I think, you know, as young as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are, they have a lot of playoff experience. So, you know, kind of for them, they've been here before. And obviously they were the better team pretty much. And, you know, the Cavs were obviously depleted, missing a bunch of guys, Jared Allen, missing Donovan Mitchell, obviously, those last 2 games. So I thought even if the Cavs were healthy, the Celtics would have been able to get them out of there in 5 games. But now this is a new challenge. You know, you're going up against Indiana, which we'll get into a little bit later. But, you know, I don't think the Celtics are, you know, I said that they wouldn't lose a game. I think it was 2 podcasts ago, that we should win pretty much every game going into, I think it was Eastern Conference Finals or Western Conference Finals, but
it should.
But you know, a lot of people should wear hoodies when it's cold outside. They should look both ways when they're crossing the street. Like, it's just a bunch of stuff that people will try to nitpick any and everything that the Celtics do. And that's just what's going to be until we get to the big dance and JT's holding that Larry O'Brien trophy. So we're just gonna take our wins as we get them, and we're just gonna keep stacking these victories until we get to the finals. And we're just here. It's all business from here on out.
People should wear hoodies when it's cold outside, but they also should wear hoodies when they left the AC on too long in their apartment and they suddenly got cold. That's what happened to me. But anyways, Kevin, just as Toddy said, the Celtics should have swept their way through the first 2 rounds. Nevertheless, they didn't. But they are moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals again, as this is the Eastern Conference Finals is basically becoming the Celtics Invitational. But Kevin, what did you think about the Celtics defeating the Cavaliers in 5 games?
I mean, it's not much to say. Like Toddy mentioned it, the Celtics aren't going to get the credit, unless we see them play a fully healthy team. No one's going to give them the credit. Easiest run in playoff history. Blah 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 blah. Like Toddy said, at the end of the day, only thing that matters is the W in the box score, and they won these games. But I think that mentality is going to have to change because you've played 2 teams that went in there saying, do we really have a chance? Our best players out. We're at home. If we're going to win a game, we're going to win a game here. But that boy in Indiana ain't the same. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later on. But we saw a lot of great things from the Boston Celtics, but I wanted to take this time to really talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers and kind of what they're going to have to do moving on. Is this Donovan Mitchell's last game in a Cleveland Cavaliers jersey? We saw early in the season when Darius Garland and Jared Allen were hurt. We saw this team really play well. Now Jared Allen goes down and Evan Mobley's playing his lights out. We're seeing Evan Mobley sit up there, stretch from the 3-point line, doing all these things like we talked about with Sabonis and Miles Turner. Having 2 big men really can kill an offense or can really make an offense. And I think it's kind of getting to that point where out of this 4, their big 4 with Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, and Darius Garland, I honestly believe only 2 of them return. We've seen Darius Garland go from an all-star to, a second option, and he's just not the same player. So if they want to maximize this run and do whatever they can do, you trade Jared Allen to Los Angeles for LeBron James.
What?
And we really get shit popping. We're going home.
Oh, my gosh.
Jared Allen for LeBron James is crazy.
That's some picks.
So LeBron's going back to Cleveland. KD's going back to OKC.
He was at the game.
He was at the game.
Gave him a free $500 bottle of wine. They ain't just giving that to anyone who comes to Riverside. Not every fan gets a fucking video before the game. He was just a fan.
Yeah, he was just there.
Hey, man.
Yeah. No big deal.
Owners giving them tickets like, hey, man, I saw you in town for Mother's Day. Why don't you come on through, man? Here's a bottle of wine and 2 courtside tickets for you and Mrs. James. Here's the key to the city. Whenever you want to come back home, it's always here for you.
Yeah, Dan.
And we're going to draft Bronny.
Your son.
Dan Gilbert is trying to make amends constantly and forever for that letter that he released after LeBron went to Miami. He's trying to make amends forever. And so now, guys, moving on to that different guy in Indiana that Kevin just alluded to, and that being the Eastern Conference semifinal series between the 6th seed, you heard that right, 6th seed, Indiana Pacers, who barely avoided the play-in, but now they're moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals as the Pacers beat the New York Knicks, the number 2 seed, in 7 games in the Garden. This series was split after 6 games with the home team taking every single game, but the Pacers end that, and they also end the streak. I mentioned the streak a couple weeks ago that in the 7-8 playoff series that these 2 franchises have had against each other, the team that won game 1 went on to win every single series. That has obviously now been broken. So Indiana, they achieved a lot there. So, Kevin, I'm going to toss it to you first since you were alluding to the man, the myth, the legend, that is Tyrese Halliburton. What did you think about this series overall?
We talked about it after the in-season tournament. We said if you don't know Tyrese Halliburton, you don't know ball. And now he's putting it in the Madison Garden. He's going in there and he's sending them home. He's talking shit. He's wearing the Reggie Miller hoodie. He's like this. He's letting them know that I'm here and we're not here to fuck around. Every game you hear him say, we're not the betting favorite. No one wants us here. So it's a win-win. At this point, we're a small market team going up against the big stage Knicks. If the Knicks were healthy, would I have believed they could have still pulled it out? I don't think so. But it got to a point where 5 out of the 7 starters in the rotation were hurt for the New York Knicks. So I know everyone will sit here and say, they were hurt this, they were hurt that. They put OG Anunoby out there knowing all he can do is shuffle. My man couldn't even run. He had 2 shots, magnificent 2 shots that no one thought he was going to make. But them rushing him back just really shows the Tom Thibodeau of if you can breathe, motherfucker, you can run up and down this court. That's it. That's all. That's all we need. And the Pacers said, "You sure this is what you want to do?" And the first 5 minutes, everyone who got a shot off against OG went in 5 for 5. And they said, "You know what, OG, you just got to sit down, man. We thank you for what you've done." And I know he wanted to go out there and fight for his guys, but you can just see that these guys have been running to a wall. They've been playing guys 45 minutes from game 1 of the last series against the 76ers. So eventually it was going to come back to bite them. And I know everyone's going to say this is Tom Thibodeau's fault. Tom Thibodeau's fault. He shouldn't do this. He did it with Derrick Rose. When they sent off all those guys for their standing ovation and they subbed in players, I had no idea who they were. No idea. Never seen them, and I watch a lot of basketball. I don't know where they used to play. I don't know where they went to college. Nothing. These are guys that they just picked up on the way to the stadium and said, "Hey, we got 3 extra jerseys. You're not going to play, but you can sit there on the bench." And they're like, "Fuck it. I'm cool. We're not going to play. Hey, man, I'm just sit here and do my thing." Jalen Brunson had a remarkable playoff run, putting him as arguably one of the top point guards in the NBA. So it's definitely great to see. I really hope that he's able to go play for USA. I'm believing he's not going to. So now that is 2 spots that are questionable for the USA team. I don't know if Kawhi Leonard's going to play. So now we have to have that conversation of who might take those last 2 spots. But the Knicks just ran out of gas, simply put. They put everything out there that they did. Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, OG Anunoby, Bogdanovich got hurt. Like, these are all freak accidents. I don't know if you guys remember, but Joel Embiid body slammed Mitchell Robinson. That's how he got hurt. So, I mean, these are just miraculous injuries. Jalen Brunson's going down for the ball. He's done that probably 1,000 times in his NBA, or not even his NBA career, just his career playing basketball in general, and it's just a freak accident. But this run is going to benefit the Knicks very much in the future because we made it here a game away from the Eastern Conference Finals with shit on our roster, with Josh Hart scoring 22 points a game. Josh Hart at the beginning of the season was a role player. Now he's playing 45 minutes Iron Man. They had to tweet on a national app to say, he's come out the game. You got to believe this? He came out the game. These guys, I get it. It's the Villanova Big Three. They got all the who and the ha. Jalen Brunson's dad's on the staff. This Cinderella story was going to have to come to an end eventually. I would have rather see them all go out fighting. I have a real mean vehicle to bid with DraftKings. Toddy, I was talking to him. I called him as soon as he went down. I said, "Look, bro, I'm hitting every other leg. What are they going to do?" "You're fine, Kev. You're good. He got hurt." Sent it to him. He said, "Damn. Cold world, man." This is something we like to say on the podcast. But the Knicks, they showed a lot. This young Pacers team is really just – I don't know if you heard it, Shaun, but I was telling Toddy at the beginning – they're in a win-win situation. They can lose 4 games and be like, we weren't supposed to be here. We're the 60. We're the Indiana Pacers. We're just solidifying that we are in the right direction moving forward. Now for sure Pascal Siakam's going to resign. That was one of the biggest things seen after that trade. What does that contract look like? And it looks like a max offer deal because he's been going out there and being their second best player. Now, I would really love to see this team with Benedict Mathurin still, but I get him and his brother mixed up all the time. Which Nembhard played for the Pacers? Andrew?
Andrew
Nembhard. He is a showstopper. He's coming in and doing his thing. They have Toddy's old guy, the shooter. He went to Vanderbilt. Why am I not remembering his name? Neesmith. Aaron Neesmith. So they have a bunch of basically toys that were thrown to the wasteland. The Knicks said Obi Toppin for a second. Here you go. Take him. He just won a dunk contest. That don't do nothing in the 82 regular season. But the Pacers are on the right track. They have a lot of great things to look forward to. And we're going to get into our takes later, so I'll save my take for then. But, yeah, man, I think we might be seeing a lot more of Tyrese Halliburton.
All right, Toddy. Well, this is your future opponent. I mean, future as in tomorrow, starting tomorrow in the Eastern Conference Finals. So were you satisfied with this result? Would you have rather played against the beaten down New York Knicks? Because I disagree with Kevin. I believe if the New York Knicks were 100% healthy, and this is no shade to Indiana, but as I've talked about in the past, the New York Knicks were just playing with a different level of chemistry with the Villanova Knicks. And you add in Hartenstein turning into a solid NBA player. I mean, he's always been a solid NBA player. Let me rephrase that. But just becoming a starter with the absence of a Mitchell Robinson, with the absence of a Julius Randle. And so I really liked what I saw from the New York Knicks. And all I'll say about the New York Knicks with this series is that I really like what they have coming back next year if they're healthy and the nucleus that they have established. But also, if they find a way to somehow, some way, and I keep saying this, get Mikal Bridges, the New York Knicks are going to win an NBA championship because that chemistry would just be absolutely bonkers. But Toddy, please,
right.
I guess so, right?
Retirement. Sorry, Tom. Thibodeau, we got to bring in everybody from Villanova, and we're going to run it back in the pros.
At least Jay Wright would only have Josh Hart play maybe 46 minutes a game rather than 48. But, Toddy, what did you think about this series overall as the Pacers finished the Knicks in 7 games?
You guys kind of hit everything on the head there. I just think the Knicks were a little bit too depleted. You saw kind of going into the series like, hey, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, DiVincenzo, OG, they're all playing like 40 minutes a game. Like, is that going to be sustainable? Oh, it doesn't matter. They're all hooping. And then OG, Hammy, you got Josh Hart, abdominal, I'm out. Jalen Brunson, broke hand. Like, it comes to a point where it's just like when you just have your guys are just falling out and, on the injury report consistently, and Mitchell Robinson's already out, and Bogdan Bogdanovic was a no-show for this series, and Julius Randle obviously torn labrum. So it's kind of like this was what's been the constant for this New York Knicks team is, are they going to be healthy? And yes, Jalen Brunson played his ass off the entire series and has probably cemented himself as one of the top point guards in this league. But it comes down to your best ability is availability. A lot of the Knicks players were not available. And does that have something to do with Tom Thibodeau's coaching style? Could be. He does have a track record of running guys into the ground, as Kev already mentioned, Derrick Rose. But I do think that this Knicks team has a lot to look forward to, as Kevin also already mentioned. They got to a Game 7 with, Deuce McBride and freaking DiVincenzo's going off, having 39 in a game, who they did lock up during the season, which was very smart, because if he was playing for a contract this year, he'd be getting like close to like an $80 million contract. And I think they have a lot to look forward to going into next year. They do have draft picks if they kind of want to get frisky and maybe trade for a guy. But I don't think that will be necessary, because I think that this team healthy can get to an Eastern Conference Finals. Now, as far as the Indiana Pacers, you got Tyrese Halliburton wearing the Reggie Miller hoodie after the end of the game. You have
should have worn it before. Wear the hoodie before the game. That
would have been time.
Hey, man,
he played it safe is what he did.
Played it safe.
Yeah,
he played it safe.
I ain't seen one photo of what he showed up in, so we don't really know.
So
he showed up. He showed up in a boring ass outfit, and that's saying something for Tyrese. Sorry, Toddy. Go ahead.
Outfits have been.
This Pacers team was very frisky, and that's kind of what they had to be to make this a series. Obi Toppin played well off the bench. TJ McConnell is getting some money this offseason. I think a lot of people are going to look back and say, hey, that Pascal Siakam trade at the deadline, it wasn't a lot of people. He was, the Raptors were saying he's going to go here, he's going to go there, but he ended up going to Indiana. They were aggressive. And people were kind of like, Pascal Siakam, I thought that trade kind of got swept under the rug a little bit. A lot of people weren't really hyping it up as much as they should have. Just because the year before Tyrese Halliburton had gotten hurt and that kind of derailed their season. And people aren't really talking about in last year before Tyrese Halliburton got hurt, the Indiana Pacers were in playoff contention, and they believed that if they would have got a Siakam, that would kind of put them over the top, and they're in the Eastern Conference Finals now. And Rick Carlisle, the championship head coach, a lot of experience in the playoffs. They have a lot to look forward to. So, I mean, the Pacers, so, as Draymond Green said, somebody had to win. So they're in the Eastern Conference Finals now, and congrats to the Indiana Pacers.
What did they get back for Buddy Hield? I was trying to remember. I couldn't think. Did they get draft picks?
I think it might have been cash considerations.
Because Buddy Hield could help.
Yeah,
Buddy Hield could really help on this run.
And now Buddy Hield is apparently going to go to Orlando, is some of the rumors I've seen. Orlando's either going to get Klay Thompson, Malik Monk, or Buddy Hield. That seems like what's going to happen there as the piece that they need, apparently. But before we move on completely from the semifinals and the NBA playoffs, I just wanted to give a shout out to Tyrese Halliburton, man, because he has truly emerged, as Kevin mentioned earlier. I mean, he did earlier in the season for all the casuals with the in-season tournament when he really emerged. But a lot of people were slandering Tyrese Halliburton throughout these playoffs. After Game 1 against the Bucks, people were coming after him. After the first couple games of this series, like, where is Tyrese Halliburton? Even after Game 5 of this series against the Knicks, where they were saying, oh, where's Tyrese Halliburton? He was talking all that shit to DiVincenzo after Game 4. Where was he in Game 5? But he showed up Game 6, and he showed up Game 7. What's up, Todd?
The trade, the Sixers dealt Furkan Korkmaz, a second-round draft pick in 2024-29, and cash considerations for the Pacers. So Buddy Hield got traded for cash considerations, a pick and a player.
So before we move on, 2 years moved away from the trade. Who won the trade between the Kings and the Pacers?
I mean,
Pacers are the Eastern Conference Finals, big dog. Hey man, you guys got one playoff run to show for it. Pacers do too. They got one playoff run.
Hey, we made it first.
Kings fans,
we ran into a step 50 piece.
Kings fans are going to want this to be a more long-term thing, but in the short term, it's the Pacers. The Pacers got to the Eastern Conference Finals.
What are you talking about?
Get him, Shaun.
Literally last year, if we asked the same question last year, the answer is that the Kings won the trade if we're using the playoff run as a model, right? Now we're going year 2. Okay, now the Pacers have won it. Where are we going to be at next year? If the Kings end up making it to the West, I mean, I honestly thought that the Kings
got an
All-NBA
player
Finals last year. The Kings do have an All-NBA player, and the Pacers will likely have an All-NBA player this year because he played just enough games to meet the minimum qualification. But I just wanted to wrap up this semifinals talk by just saying shout out to Tyrese Halliburton, man, because after all that talk, he showed up in Game 6, and then in the Mecca, national television, in the middle of a Sunday, he came out in the first quarter yesterday, 14 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 5 of 7 from the field, and 4 of 5 from three-point range. The Indiana Pacers yesterday shot 67.1% from the field, which is the highest field goal percentage in any playoff game in NBA history. They were out there hooping. And it wasn't just the guy on my jersey. I had the match.
I knew he had something under the hoodie, bro. As soon as he changed, I knew he had something.
What are you guys, Clark Kent? You guys are coming out of your freaking.
I was on ESPN doing my commit day. You feel me? That's what I was doing.
Another zero. We got another zero that we gotta show up here because I'm proud of Tyrese Halliburton, man. Just like I was talking about earlier with Malik Monk, where it's like I would miss Malik Monk and I don't want him to leave Sacramento, but I want him to do what's best for him, and he ultimately probably will. I'm happy, even though it wasn't Tyrese's choice and he was heartbroken when he did get traded. It was best for him to go to his own team, run his own team, and let De'Aaron Fox have his own team because it's just what was best for both sides. And
Kings
Toddy,
it's like Conference Finals. We've never traded them.
All I'm saying, the Kings was in the East.
It seems like a cop-out, Toddy, for me to say that like both teams won the trade. But like this truly seems like one of those trades that truly worked out for both sides because the Kings needed the best big man that they ever have had since DeMarcus Cousins. I think DeMarcus Cousins, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Did DeMarcus Cousins even ever make an All-NBA team? I don't think he made an All-NBA team, but he was a multi-time All-Star. Please. Okay, he did make one, Toddy. Okay, so Domas, if that's the case, Domas has already tied him in his first full season in Sacramento. And so anyways, it seems like this trade worked out for both sides. And just as much as I will continue to support Malik the Monster Monk if he does depart Sacramento, I'm going to continue to support Tyrese Halliburton for the rest of his career. Fun fact, I bought this jersey after he got traded. I got it on a discount because I still wanted to own a damn Tyrese Halliburton jersey. Hope to get this signed one day, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Tyrese, and he wasn't the only guard in Indianapolis who had a great series. TJ McConnell is the first bench player in NBA history to record 40 or more assists and 10 or fewer turnovers in a single playoff series. So the more you know, I'm happy for Indiana. I will certainly be rooting for them in the Eastern Conference Finals, not just out of spite to Toddy's Celtics, but good for them, honestly, because last year I felt like the Kings not easily, but the Kings could have made it to the Western Conference Finals last year. Like you beat the Warriors, you somehow find a way to get past the Warriors, and I feel like the Kings match up well against the Los Angeles losers. We saw that throughout this season when the Kings swept them. And so the Kings very well could have made a conference finals run last year, but they ran into one of the greatest of all time, dropping 50 on their home court. It is what it is. Now, a year later, Tyrese Halliburton has led his squad to the conference finals in the East, and I'm not upset about it. I'm happy for him. Congratulations. Congrats to everyone in Indiana, because I got you, Kevin. Congrats to everyone in Indiana, because the Fever, they may have Caitlin Clark, but the Fever suck right now. So at least you got the Pacers. What were you going to say, Kevin?
So Domantas Sabonis needs one more All-NBA team to tie Boogie. He made second team 15 and 16.
Yeah, so Boogie did do it twice. I'm sorry, Boogie, man. For some reason I thought he might have made a third team, but damn, Boogie.
Yeah, he made second team both 2 years or two back.
Boogie, but I mean, how quickly we forget, and I say we, mainly meaning me. DeMarcus Cousins arguably was the best center in the NBA for multiple years, and a second team All-NBA nod kind of just backs that up.
But you guys are trash.
Yeah, that's not true, bro. What?
Yeah. He was
the Joker before the Joker. If DeMarcus Cousins was born 10 years later, boy, them conversations are crazy because prime DeMarcus Cousins was no joke.
It's kind of just like that. Toddy, what you just said is kind of just like the Stephen A meme, where it's like, you're not wrong. You didn't have to say it, but you're not wrong. As we move on here on episode number 97 of Stats Over Politics, Shaun Holko alongside Kevin Dent and Jaevon Toddy. Garry Singh will be rejoining us next week for episode number 98. Guys, now it's time to preview the finals in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Then we're going to get to some factor cap and get out of here. So as we see the big smirk on Jaevon's face, let's get to the East first as the 1 seed Celtics play the 6 seed, aforementioned Indiana Pacers. So, I mean, the loyal listeners know where Toddy's going on this one. So, Kevin, I'm going to toss it to you first. Where do you see this series going? Who you got winning it and how many games?
So let's go ahead and just go back down memory lane. Let's go memory lane. So let's imagine this. 2009. We see the puppet commercials. LeBron and Kobe. What do? They go 8-0 first 2 rounds. Not worried about none kicking their feet up. The Celtics and the Magic go 7 games. And the Cavs are at home sitting on their ass. And the Magic come in there and say, you've been sitting on your ass playing nobody, and we've been grinding it out, getting out the mud. Magic in 6. So let's fast forward now. Celtics been sitting on their ass, like Toddy said, with their feet up, watching the game. No Porzingis. This Pacers team coming off a 7-game series, coming in hot. So with that being said, I'm going to take the Pacers in 6. I think they're going to come and shock the world. We've seen Jaylen Brown struggle. We've seen Jason Tatum kind of being the guy that solidify things. We've seen Derek White kind of slow down. His insanity run is over. So what else are they throwing at him? You throw Jaylen Brown left, and he's like Emmanuel Hansel. You got Jason Tatum out there doing the best he can, but this team just, I don't know, Toddy. This team has not showed me that they're just gonna. We should all just say Celtics in 4. We have to give the Pacers respect. I believe they haven't lost a single game at home, and I don't think that changes because the other team is in green. So don't Toddy. I promise you, if they leave Boston 1-1, it's fucking up. Because, like I said, this is a lose-lose situation. If they win, okay, the Celtics played bad. Porzingis is hurt. No. If you lose, oh, well, we're the Pacers. But fuck it. Why not? Tyrese Halliburton said, ain't no one betting on us. We're not on no one's parlay. No one expects us to be here, so let's come in here and make shit do. If we can see Tyrese Halliburton not shoot 9 shots a game and we get game 7, Hallie, I don't know. And are we going to put Al Horford on Pascal? Is that the game plan? I don't know. I think it's going to really come down to, is Jaylen Brown going to be worth all that money? Because Jason Tatum's going to have to go out there and do his thing. Him and Hallie will cancel each other out. Pascal Siakam is Jaylen Brown going to step and be the number 1, 2? Or we're going to see another Lynn Sanity Derek Brown run? Or what are we going to see from this team? So with that being said, I think we're going to see Tyrese Halliburton in the NBA Finals, ladies and gentlemen. And I know a lot of you guys are saying, Kevin, you're crazy. Kevin, you're just hating on Toddy. But we put out a poll saying, are the Boston Celtics going to win the NBA championship? And a lot of them said, Kevin, this is cap. This team has not shown us that this run has been a fluke. People are comparing it to the Golden State run when Chris Paul got hurt, Kawhi got hurt. So, hey, man, anyone can go to the finals. A blind squirrel can get an acorn 2 days out of the year. So, with that being said, Pacers in 6, baby. And we told Toddy if no matter what happens, if the Celtics do not win a championship, Toddy will have to take a break from the podcast because Jason Tatum said, they don't treat us like the best team. We didn't get MVP. We didn't get Coach of the Year. We didn't get 6-man. We didn't get the Community Sportsmanship Award. We didn't get anything. Don't let Tyrese Halliburton come in there and send y'all home because that will hit the big red button that Toddy's scared of hitting, and that's going to blow this whole shit up. Pacers in 6.
Toddy, go ahead.
Yeah, Celtics in 5. This is just like Kevin's potting right now. He's trying to bait you guys. They just beat the Knicks. They got all this chemistry and it's game 7, Hallie, and Tyrese Halliburton had 6 points, I believe it was in game 2. That's net. The inconsistencies I've seen from him throughout that playoff series was a little bit of alarming, and he could do that in this series, and it's not going to fly. I don't know what you guys want me to say. The Celtics are minus 900 to win the series. They're 10-point favorites tomorrow. They're minus 1,600 to win the series against Cleveland, which was pretty insane. So I don't really see anything that changes. I would like to respect the Indiana Pacers, so I'm going to give them a game at home. They're probably going to win game 3. I'll say they win game 4 because they're not going to be like, we're not going to get swept, and everybody's going to be waving their towels. Reggie Miller is calling the game, and it's going to be electric. But I just think the Celtics are the best team in basketball. We've been that we've kind of been on autopilot since we secured the number 1 seed, which was in February, and we're just trying to coast and get our way to the finals, which I feel like Indiana Pacers are a fairly good team, but they're kind of just in the way at this point. And, TJ McConnell's, scrappy, and you got Nembhard hitting step back threes to win the game. That's not going to happen here, okay? The jig is up. I think this was kind of a facade. The Pacers made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're one of the best teams in the league. Are they? Are they? Or did they just kind of just beat who was in front of them? All respect to Tyrese Halliburton and those guys. Pascal Siakam, Obi Toppin. He's going to be doing between the legs dunks. And Obi Toppin hits a reverse dunk to go down by 22 points. All right.
He got one.
We'll see. Yeah,
the Cavs got one.
He got one. The Cavs got one. The Pacers could get one.
The Pacers are a lot better than both of those teams.
Okay. Well, they'll get one game. They'll get one game. So, I mean, I don't really see the Pacers really being a threat to the Celtics. More of a tune-up for the finals. I'll say that.
Brother, I promise you, if you guys lose, that clip right there, that 2-minute clip, will make us go fucking viral. So, at this point, I really hope you lose now.
Or this is reverse psychology, and Kevin's going to go viral because the Celtics are going to
No, I mean, it's the Pacers. Like you said, they're like, he was potting. But for you to say this is just a tune-up?
Yeah, tune-up. 5 games.
You got to respect your opponent.
I do. That's why I gave him a game.
Toddy, tell me one more time. What's the status of Porzingis?
So Woj said that he's probably not going to come back till game 2 or 3. So he's going to miss first 3 games. I mean, even if Porzingis doesn't play, I'm not.
Who starts in front of him? Derek Brown?
Derek White?
Derek White, sorry.
Yeah, so we go small, and I think Horford.
Wrong color.
So Horford's going to guard Pascal?
I mean, we have guys that can guard Pascal. It's not a problem.
Well,
going to be a problem.
I will
score 20-something again.
I guess
I will. I gotta say this for my friend Matthew Pearson, who is a diehard Philadelphia 76ers fan and cannot stand Al Horford. Fuck you, Al. Because anytime that he hears about Al Horford, that's literally
Al Horford fleeced the Sixers a while ago.
Literally, anytime that man's name is mentioned around Matthew, that is the 3 words that he can say. Like, that's all he can say is "fuck you, Al." So shout out to Matthew. Fuck you, Al. But the reason why I asked about Porzingis is you look at Miles Turner throughout the playoffs thus far: 17.5 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game, 1.8 blocks per game, 2.5 3-pointers per game, with a 51-46 split on shooting percentage. That is 51% from the field and 46% from three-point range. Miles Turner is leading all remaining players in three-point percentage this playoffs with a minimum of 40 point attempts. So,
can I get an amen?
Amen. No Porzingis could be a problem because I know Drew Holiday's been a great addition, but Porzingis to me has been the X factor for the Boston Celtics this year that took them to another level, because you have a guy who used to be called the Unicorn and Porzingod, and he was supposed to be the #1 option for the New York Knicks until he tore his ACL, and now he became a second option for the Dallas Mavericks. That didn't work out. Now what is he, Toddy? Fourth option? Fifth option? Third. Okay, sorry. I'm a fan of Derek White, so I like Derek White. But okay, third option. He's the third option on this team. Is he really the third option, or is Drew Holiday the third option? I'm not questioning it, just asking a question. But I'll leave that there and just say that Toddy thinks that the Celtics are all high and mighty, and they are just bounds and leaps better than the Pacers. But if you look at the highest offensive rating all time in a season, the Boston Celtics are #1. But the Indiana Pacers are #2. You have the high-powered Eastern Conference Finals between Jason Tatum Celtics and Tyrese Halliburton's Pacers. All that said, I got the Boston Celtics in 6 because clearly the better high-powered. I'm sorry, Kevin. But, this is Stats Over Politics after all. And if Porzingis does come back by game 3, game 4, I do think that is going to be a difference maker. Kevin, I absolutely love what you had to say when it comes to I can't remember. I'm sorry. I can't remember the exact playoff series that you mentioned, but just talking about how the Celtics have been resting and the Pacers are going to come in with momentum. I think the Pacers steal game 1 in Boston. The Celtics have shown that they lose on their home court. The home court is not sacred in Boston. I got the Pacers winning game 1. I got the Pacers winning game 4, but Celtics in 6. We'll hear from Garry. We'll get the graphics out there. We'll figure out who he got. But unfortunately, I would like to keep my lead at the top of the Stats Over Politics NBA playoff pick'em. And so I got the Celtics in 6, as much as I would love to politic and pick the Pacers. But, I mean, obviously, we see the jersey that I'm wearing. It may say Sacramento on it, but it says Halliburton on the back. When I did a quick change during the podcast, I almost wore it backwards. So Halliburton was on the front. I almost did, but I was like, no, Sacramento through and through. Anyways, I got Celtics in 6. We'll see how it ultimately ends up going as we start to wrap things up here on episode number 97 of Stats Over Politics. Guys, we got to preview the best coast, which is the West Coast. With the Western Conference Finals, we see Kevin wearing the Timberwolves jersey as they take on the Mavericks. And I will go first on this one because this is really interesting.
It is.
Kevin, could you show us the jersey that you're wearing one more time and just do a quick spin so we can see who's on the back? Oh, okay. D'Angelo Russell from the Ohio State University. And when the Minnesota Timberwolves had a starting lineup of D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert, this is last year, they were the worst lineup in the NBA with a minimum of 100 minutes on the floor together. You replace D'Angelo Russell. I love D'Lo. I'm not trying to slander him, but that's ultimately the way this is going. But you replace D'Angelo Russell with another point guard from the Ohio State University, Mike Conley, and suddenly the Timberwolves find themselves in the Western Conference Finals. I think that's important to note. All of that said, I got the Timberwolves winning this series in 6 games. I'm going to go T-Wolves in 6. I almost went 5, but I'm going to show the Mavericks some respect. I kept mentioning those stats in the last round of Luka Doncic after a playoff loss. So I'm going to show the Mavericks a little respect. I give the Mavericks a couple games. Kyrie obviously needs to step it up and not be what he was in the semifinals. But, I mean, I'm jumping on the bandwagon too, guys. The Wolves are back. I'm happy to see the Wolves succeeding as a Kings fan after our 2 franchises were so bad for so long. But I got the Wolves in 6. I feel confident in that pick. Toddy, where do you got this series going?
I think this series goes 7 games. It's going to be a lot of back and forth. Ant's going to, do what he does. I think a lot of people are kind of underestimating how good Luka is. Luka kind of willed this team to a 6-game victory over the number 1 seed, OKC Thunder. I think Kyrie Irving is going to play a lot better than he has than he played previously. I think we'll still see the same PJ Washington that we saw in the last series as well. Derek Lively is going to be going to have to step up as well because he is going up against a glass cleaner in Rudy Gobert, and it's going to be tough because the Timberwolves have a lot of guys that can kind of like guard Kyrie and that could guard Luka on a night-to-night basis. And Anthony Edwards can definitely get some minutes against Luka at some point in time if need be, because we saw him in the fourth quarter in the last series, obviously, which was last night against Jamal Murray in the second half. He only had 11 points compared to the 5 that he had in the first half. So I think the Wolves probably end up winning in 7 games, and that's tough for me to say because I think Luka's going to have he's probably going to average like 35 in this series. Kyrie's going to have to average north of 25 points per game in this series, and PJ will probably average somewhere around 18, 19 points a game in this series, which is solid. I think the advantage that the Wolves have is defense on the perimeter and being able to rebound. I feel like that's going to be huge for them in this series. So, I have the Wolves winning in 7 games.
All right, Kevin, we see the jersey. You got the Wolves too?
Wolves back, baby. And, this has been a great run, Dallas. You did your thing. You made it this far 2 times in 3 years, but this is where the train ends. Take it Timberwolves in 5. We've seen Kyrie kind of just play hit or miss. We've seen the PJ Washington Linsanity run kind of teeter into the end. Kyrie hasn't been playing well. Luka's been playing through an injury. Are we going to get – what Daniel Gafford are we going to get? What I mean, Derrick Jones Jr. won them a game by shooting 8 for 8. He ain't never done that in his career. So I think the Timberwolves are playing at a level right now that is unmatched. We saw that Lou Dort in the first 2 games really wore down Luka. And now you're going from Lou Dort, the Dort Chamber, to Jaden McDaniels and Nikhil Alexander Walker. You know, Anthony Edwards, Nas Reed, like they have defenders on defenders on defenders that are going to be able to come in and really go toe-to-toe for them. Now, and if Kyrie plays the way he's been playing, they're not going to have a single chance in this series. Luke, if we can get the Luka Doncic that, you know, misses a shot, gets fouled, and just runs back on defense, you know, maybe Wolves in 6. But if we get the Luka that sits there and complains and bitches at the ref and cries.
Yeah, he can't do that this year.
Yeah, he can't do that. You know, Jason Kidd says, you know, it kills him. You know, you're playing 4-on-5 and you're sitting there back. Like, they're not going to – this isn't the NFL. They're not going to review it and go backwards and give it to you. Like, that's not how the world works. Like, the play is moving on. You sitting here going back and forth with the ref isn't going to change anything. And we've seen Anthony Edwards have 2 bad games, and the Timberwolves still win. We have yet to see the Mavericks win when Luka plays bad. So we might see a bad game coming, and if Kyrie's only putting up 9 points, could get ugly. You know, I know everyone's saying Kyrie's the last of a living breed. You know, all the veterans that are no longer in the playoffs. Kyrie leads the pack. He was a locker room cancer. He did this, he did that, and now he's here. So, Kyrie, congratulations. But like I told Tiny, this is not the Cleveland Cavaliers Kyrie Irving. He is not walking through that door. Wolves in 6, or 4 and 5, excuse me. Timberwolves in 5.
Wolves
I like Wolves in 5. I wanted to go Wolves in 5. I just wasn't bold enough to do it. So we got Wolves in 5, 6, and 7. We'll find out who Garry has, and we will update social media accordingly as we start to close things out here on episode number 97 of Stats Over Politics. Shaun Holko alongside Kevin and Jaevon Toddy. Guys, it is now time for our most popular recurring segment. It's time for Fact or Cap, Kevin.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy, is right. So we are rolling into Fact or Cap. We got 2 really good ones for you today, but we're going to start with football. We missed this topic last week. I saw a lot of things. I've heard a lot of rumbles, so I had to bring this onto the podcast. So, Toddy, I'm going to swing it to you first. Fact or Cap? Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott.
I'll say fact. I think Goff, you know, he's been to a Super Bowl, obviously. Had deep playoff runs. Dak has yet to do that. I think the only deep playoff run they kind of had was in 2016. Puts up consistent numbers. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, he only had Sean McVay," and then when he went to the Lions with, you know, Ben Johnson, a lot of people were considering being a head coach one day. They went to the, I was going to say Western Conference Finals, NFC Championship game. I think he's good. He's like in that, you know, 10-12 range, kind of like where Dak is. A lot of people are going to overhype Dak. He was in MVP considerations last year, and, you know, it was a shortage on quarterbacks last year, so we'll see how good Dak really is this year because, you know, their team kind of got worse. But, you know, Zeke's back and they're going on a run. And I think it's Jared Goff. You know, Jared Goff just signed an extension. I don't think it was for nothing. And, you know, Jordan Lions are going to be solid for the next couple of years. So I'll say that this is a fact. Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott.
All right, Shaun, I'm going to swing it your way next. Fact or cap? Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott. Excuse me.
Man, years ago, if you asked me this question, I certainly immediately would have said that this is cap. Dak Prescott is just on another level. Jared Goff is I hate using this term, but here we are again. Jared Goff was a game manager. Dak Prescott was a playmaker. But here we are. It's 2024. And Jared Goff, as Toddy already mentioned, Jared Goff has 2 NFC Championship game appearances. He even won an NFC Championship game and made it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he could have won a Super Bowl with the LA Rams if not for arguably one of the best defenses ever, led by the greatest defensive coach ever.
Who was jobless?
They held him. Who is now jobless? Apparently, Foxborough High School might be hiring, though, according to the Tom Brady roast. And so maybe Bill Belichick is headed that way. Anyways, to answer the question, Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott. This is a fact, and the reason why I say it's a fact is because we tend to associate winning with quarterback success. If a team makes it far, that means that the quarterback must be good. But if a team continues to lose in the divisional round, what does that say about the quarterback? And simply put, I think back to the 49ers and Cowboys playoff game when at the very end you have Zeke snapping the ball, which was just strange to me. I mean, if you're truly the leader of the team, you're going to let that happen on like the play of your season. But also, I think back to the first playoff game that was recent between the 49ers and the Cowboys in Dallas when Dak decides to run, right, Toddy? Dak decides to run, and then he has to run all the way up and tries to clock it. Oh, time runs out. 49ers win. Jimmy Garoppolo holds on. Man. And so this is a fact. Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott, and I'm basing that solely – this is stats over politics, and I'm not even looking at the individual stats. I'm basing it solely off of team success. Jared Goff won with one team. He's won with another. And I'll just add, everyone wants to slander the Cowboys, but it's like the Detroit Lions had not won a playoff game in over 30 years. Jared Goff comes to town, and they do something that Matthew Stafford couldn't. And Matthew Stafford went on to win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff's former team. This is a fact. Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott.
And I think we got to make it 3 for 3, fellas. Factor cap. Jared Goff is better than Dak Prescott. Yes, I'm an Eagles fan, so there's no bias in this, but let me just go ahead and run down memory lane. Both of these teams were drafted in 2016. One quarterback was first overall. One was 135th. 117 regular season starts for Jared Goff to 114 to Dak Prescott. 202 touchdowns to 74 interceptions, Dak Prescott. 185 touchdowns to 82 interceptions. That's their overall career. Yes, Dak Prescott was an MVP candidate last year, throwing for 4,516 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions to Jared Goff's 5,575 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 12 picks. So the numbers show why Jared Goff, should have been an MVP candidate because he had the better numbers. But let's just go saying, like Shaun mentioned, quarterback comes along with winning. And, we can talk about who's gone further in the past, or we can just go off of last season. One team was a tremendous favorite and lost at home. One team won 2 playoff games. So Jared Goff, and, I don't want to come on here and say it. The Lions should have played in the Super Bowl because the Lions just couldn't catch. But, that's neither here nor there. Brandon Ayuk catches an amazing tip off of someone's shoelace, and, now we're here, and the Niners just collect another sweatsuit to add to their collection. So, moving on to the next question.
That was harsh. The sweatsuit, harsh.
That's all you guys do is collect gear. You don't bring back the trophy. Just collect the sweatsuits. Oh, and halftime tickets. I know you guys have the best halftime performances show. You saw Beyonce. You saw the lights go off. You saw, we don't got to go down that road. All right, moving on. Factor cap, Shaun. Bradley Beal has the worst contract in the NBA.
Toddy, I'll just add that this was an impromptu factor cap. I decided to add it to the agenda based on the conversation that we had earlier. And since the question is posed to me first, I'm going to say that this is cap because Bradley Beal, he may have had a rough first year with the Phoenix Suns, but at least he's a multi-time All-Star, and he is an established NBA talent. I don't know if I was going to say great. He's an all-star. He is an NBA all-star time and time again. And so, to me, just as much as I'm looking forward to seeing Malik Monk get paid, Bradley Beal, in my opinion, has earned his money. So I'm going to say that this is cap because the worst contract in the NBA is the guy that Bradley Beal was traded for, basically. And that's Jordan Poole. Even though Bradley Beal was technically traded for Chris Paul and Chris Paul was traded for Jordan Poole,
you could basically look at it as Bradley Beal was traded for Jordan Poole, and Jordan Poole has a 4-year contract worth $123 million, and he's better in a bench role. And so he's basically a glorified sixth man who makes $30 million a year. I love Malik Monk, but I don't think he's going to get paid $30 million a year, and he'll probably become a starter on his new team. And I hate the way that I keep saying that, but it just seems likely that Monk is gone. But anyways, this is Cap. Bradley Beal does not have the worst contract in the NBA.
All right, Toddy. I'm going to swing it to you next. Factor Cap. Bradley Beal has the worst contract in the NBA.
Second worst. First is Ben Simmons. The Aussie has been seen at the Met Gala. And he has, hasn't played. So, I mean, but he can do whatever he wants. He's a grown-ass man. So, I mean, he could go to the Met Gala if he wants to. But it's just, we haven't really seen him play basketball games. And I think that, given his contract and what he was traded for, which was James Harden, which was an all-time fleece, the Sixers knew something that, the Nets didn't. And they ended up getting James Harden. And James Harden isn't even on the team anymore. So, I mean, for Ben Simmons to kind of go to Brooklyn and just, sit out, which is kind of what it's been for the majority of the game or majority of that contract. We haven't seen him play, and that's kind of what everybody wants, at a college. A lot of people were comparing him to LeBron James, which was. Can you guys hear me and see me? Cool. We're back.
Yep. Got you. I thought it was me for a second.
A lot of people were comparing Ben Simmons to LeBron James, which was insane. I never thought that for once. He was a lefty, he couldn't really shoot. A lot of hype around, LSU and his days being there. But he played well in the beginning stretches of his career, the process, he was playing well, he was making all defensive teams, all-star, but things kind of just happened. He got hurt. A lot of people will blame the injury on that, but I mean, he hasn't really lived up to what we thought he could have been. So injuries could be a part of it. Confidence could be another thing, but I would say it would have to be Ben Simmons. So I'll say that this is a Cap. Bradley Beal does not have the worst contract in the NBA. He's close. Ben Simmons didn't exist, I'd be all over it. But I'm going to have to say that this is Cap.
All right. So, Shaun, did you say Factor Cap? Cap. So we have two Caps.
It's Jordan Poole.
Factor Cap. Bradley Beal has the worst contract in the NBA. I'm also going to have to go Cap. I have two examples. I have Lonzo Ball, 4-year, $80 million, and has not played 3 of those 4 years. Not even one game. Just, he's Stephen A. said he couldn't get up from a chair. We saw him get up and down from the chair, and now he had a podcast. So that's the gap of time that has been for him. And then secondly, shout out to my man Damian Lillard. Jeremy Grant got paid 160 M's for 4 years because he was like, hey, we're going to do whatever we can to bring Dame back. And Dame said, is it official? Did the ink dry? All right, yeah, I'm out of here. I want to trade tomorrow. I want to go now. Thanks for paying my man Jeremy Grant. He's now making $27 million a year. That's more than guys like Jaren Jackson, Jalen Brunson, Tyler Hero, Kyle Kuzma. There's a lot of guys on this list that you could say are better players than Jeremy Grant, especially the way the Blazers are right now. Unfortunately, my wife is a Blazer fan, love her to death. But I was telling Toddy, by the time Alyssa and I have kids, they might be the Las Vegas Blazers. They might be relocated. Like you're paying $180 million for Jeremy Grant to average 19 points? $180 million? That has to be the worst contract in the NBA. So those were definitely my two contenders with Lonzo Ball and Jeremy Grant. But, yeah, Ben Simmons is definitely up there. Like Shaun mentioned, Bradley Beal deserved his money. He went out there and did his thing. I don't know if he deserved the no-trade clause. So that might also be a part why the contract is pretty bad because you can't trade him once you get him. But I'm going to have to go Cap as well. So I do not believe Bradley Beal has the worst contract in the NBA.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for episode number 97 of Stats Over Politics. We're now only 2 more full episodes away to getting to number 100, which will be June 10th at 7 p.m. So make sure that you mark it on your calendars to be able to join us. There will not be any NBA games that night, so we can get all the attention. We will be back next Monday with another episode of Stats Over Politics. We will be after a conference finals game. I don't know if it's going to be the West or the East that night. I haven't looked that far ahead, but we should be joining you around 8 p.m., I would assume, if the game starts around 5. And so we'll be back again next Monday. But you guys know the deal. Make sure to give us a like on YouTube. It helps us a lot. And if you enjoy the podcast, hit subscribe to get notifications when we go live. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Stats Over Politics and on X at Stats Over Politics. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on all podcast platforms. And if you're enjoying the show, give us those 5 stars. We'd really appreciate it. As you guys have been tuned in to episode number 97 of Stats Over Politics. For my guys, Jaevon, Toddy, Kevin Dent, and Garry Singh, I've been your host, Shaun Holko. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week on another episode of Stats Over Politics.
Wolves back, baby. I'm here, Wesley. Let's go.